street kid, punk, miscreant, misfit, urban vermin. These are just a few of the colorful words that have been used to describe me. My name is Rebecca Fox. Yes, that is my real name. Some of you may know me as Little Chaos, Bonnie, Lolita, or a plethora of other aliases that I have used over the years. I'm currently writing a book called Broken Toys. It is a memoir of the years that I spent houseless, not homeless. That is an important distinction. In the United States. This was roughly the years between ages 13 and 22, off and on. My reason for writing this book is to give an authentic voice to a group of people who come from an oppressed culture. No, I cannot speak for every single houseless / homeless youth in the United States, just as not every African American person will subscribe to the experiences and voice of a particular African American. This is just a ludicrous idea. But I can give a genuine voice instead of having us studied like a subject from people who really don't have any insight objectively into our shared experiences. So, first thing is to identify us as an oppressed culture. Here is the definition of oppression, which I really don't want to be accused of plagiarism, right? From dictionary.com, the unabridged version, which can be accessed on the internet via dictionary.com and is published by Random House Incorporated. Oppression. To burden with cruel or unjust impositions or restraints, subject to burdensome or harsh exercise of authority or power. That's what oppression is. What is a culture? From the exact same source. Culture. The behaviors and beliefs characteristic of a particular social, ethnic, or age group. Or in anthropology, the sum total of ways of living built up by a group of human beings and transmitted from one generation to another. Now, if you are a houseless or homeless person, or ever have been, then you will feel that it is blatantly obvious that this position in our society is oppressed. And it is one of the most misrepresented and underrepresented group of oppressed peoples. From the definition, what is oppressing us? Okay, authorities and unjust impositions or restraints. We have unjust restrictions or restraints on our personhood by the denial of things that necessitate human existence, such things as food, clothing, shelter, mental and physical health care, access to bettering your economic status, access to formal education. I don't think I need to go into the reasons that that is the case. That is just obvious. And what are the authorities which are causing such oppression to us, right? Well, let's start with law enforcement. Law enforcement is oppressive to many peoples, maybe all peoples. And how does that specifically relate to houseless or homeless individuals? There are specific legislations that are designed against us, such as laws about loitering. Loitering, what does that mean? Okay, to be in a specific area, basically doing nothing where you're not supposed to be. So this makes sense fairly if this is, say, a business. And you're outside of the business and you smell bad because you don't have access to a shower, and maybe you're rude, and you're kind of deterring the common folk from coming into said business and purchasing items. Okay, fair enough. But do you know that there are also loitering laws in many states and cities that pertain to areas that are of public domain? Areas like parks and benches. It's interesting that they pass such legislation, and yet it never seems to apply to the middle-class family with their child. For instance, sitting on a park bench or enjoying a public area. And yet, if you are in a group, especially if it's a group of other houseless or homeless individuals and you are occupying the exact same space, an officer will come by randomly and tell you that you have to leave because you're loitering. And if you don't leave, they will write you a ticket, which you will not pay. What other such legislation exists? Legislation against panhandling. It is illegal in many cities to panhandle. What is panhandling? Or we might say spanging. That is to ask people who are randomly passing you by to give you their change, if they will give you change. Seems fair enough. You ask for it. They say no. You don't get it. You ask for it. They say yes. You get it. Totally voluntary. No one's getting robbed. You're just asking. But this is illegal, and they will also write you a ticket for doing this, which you will also not pay. Hitchhiking. A very popular mode of transportation among people who do not have residences. You want to go to California, for example, and you have no money. The best way to accomplish this for a lot of us is to hitchhike. Sure, it's dangerous, but a lot of us do it. So that is illegal in a lot of places. Again, totally voluntary. You're walking down the road, you stick your thumb out. That is the common signal that you want someone to pick you up. They decide of their own volition whether or not to do so. You get in their car and you go, or they just drive past you and do nothing. Sometimes they spin their tires and yell obscenities at you and fling puddles all over you. But that's legal. Public urination. Public urination is illegal. And so many people who are watching this are going to say, well, that is obvious why public urination should be illegal. You can't just go urinating in public and exposing yourself. Yeah, that's true. That's a valid argument. But consider that you really must use the bathroom. All humans really must do this. And if you are a houseless person, you don't have a bathroom. So you can't go to your house to use the bathroom. So you have to go somewhere else, right? You have one of two options. You can go to a store, if you're close by to one, and use their restroom and not buy anything. And they do not like this. And if this happens commonly, say a lot of kids do this very often, they will hang a sign up that says, "This bathroom is for customers only." And if you still continue to ignore their sign and use their restroom anyway, because you know you really have to go, then they will lock their bathroom. And they will put a key with the cashier at the establishment, and you will have to ask for the key, and all sorts of nasty exchanges can happen, and it's very inconvenient. And so the person who has never experienced this might say, "Well, why don't you just go to the library to use the bathroom?" Well, that's all fine, well, and good, but have you ever really, really, really had to go to the bathroom? Like right now? You have to do it now? That's rather inconvenient. Your other option is that you can go to the bathroom in a public place. Well, most of us wouldn't like for people to see us using the restroom. So we might go into an alleyway, or we might go into a roughly wooded area to relieve ourselves. And this is very illegal. And for this, not only can they write you a ticket, but also they can take you to jail. And you can also end up on the sex offenders list. So this is a very serious issue. But of course, as a human, you still gotta do it. So, where shall you sleep? Anywhere where we shall sleep, besides shelters designed for homeless people, is illegal. So the various places that we sleep, such as squats, you do other things there too, let's be fair, like drink, you know. But a squat is an abandoned building that no one is using, often condemned, where kids will gather to sleep and do other things. Another place where you might sleep is the top of a roof, or in the library, or on the bus. All of these things are illegal. And if you're lucky, the most that will happen to you, and you generally are pretty lucky, which is that the cops will just come along and tell you you can't sleep there. So you'll have to go sleep somewhere else. That is also illegal, because you don't have a house. Another thing that's very annoying, being a kid, a street kid, is the increase in surveillance of areas in which you congregate. So if there is a park where a lot of street kids tend to go there because it's a public domain and they're least likely to be hassled in this area, though they can be, they will actually station police officers in these places to watch you. This would never be acceptable to the common populace. Now, just think if you're not a street kid and never have been, and you're watching this video, think about if you're in your neighborhood and they decide to just put some cops there, just watch you, to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You would think this was an infringement of your rights. What else oppresses us? Adultism. It is pretty much the accepted ideology in our society that adults are supposed to nurture and care for children until what? Their 18th birthday. Because that's the magical number when suddenly you're grown up. So, we don't have those adults. And so, for better or worse, we are completely autonomous. And have no voice, and we have no representation. It's that simple. And if you're 16, you can be emancipated and still have no voice and no representation. What else are we oppressed by? Capitalism. We're all oppressed by that, right? So, the reason we're oppressed by capitalism, as street kids in particular, is because nobody likes us, right? Because we're in no way contributing to the betterment of the economy. And the reason is because we don't consume things besides beer and drugs, and that definitely doesn't help them, right? We maybe buy a thing here and there. And I'm just being really honest here with the realities of life in this environment and also with the shortcomings of our own people. So we're basically spending money on beer, a very little bit of food. We might go to a bar. It's very little money that we contribute back into the economic growth of the United States. Also, we don't have jobs, right? Why don't we have jobs? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we don't have jobs and aren't contributing to having jobs. And that is because it's hard to get a job when you don't have an address or a telephone number where they can call you for an interview or access to a shower that you can take before you go to said job interview if you're lucky enough to get one. I wonder if people ever think about that when you ask them for some change and they tell you to get a job and you're 14 and you can't even get a worker's permit in this state. So, those are the things that oppress us, along with many, many other things, which we can address at other times. Let us make a case that we are, in fact, a culture, right? So, culture was defined as peoples who have certain beliefs, characteristics, and ways of living, etc. We went over that. So, street kids have particular language that is only really their own. Such as, I could go to any place in the United States and see another street kid. I would recognize him or her first. That's important. I would recognize him or her almost immediately by the way he or she was dressed. They would have patches on their clothes, potentially. They may have crazy colored hair, although that's kind of going out of style, sadly. I'm kind of sad about that. Dreadlocks. And, they probably don't look like they've bathed in a while, and they perhaps have a body odor. And they're okay with that because they don't want to smell like a store anyways, right? That's not what a human smells like. So I would recognize them initially. So there is a way in which street kids appear, and we are able to recognize each other. And I could walk up to said street kid and begin a conversation in which we may come up with someone that we have met in travels, both of us. And I could say, oh my gosh, that kid is so crusty. And the person who I was talking to would know exactly what I meant by that. However, if I walked into an academic situation and described someone that I had known in my past as being crusty, I would have to go into a rather lengthy discussion about both the connotation and denotation of that word. There are lots of other language that is unique to the culture of houseless street kids. Also, houseless street kids have very intense political beliefs, often is the case. That's not always the case, but often is the case. Sometimes borderline religious, right? And this focuses around things like anti-consumerism, anti-capitalism, pretty much any institution you can think of, right? Because it all failed us, so we don't believe in it because it obviously fails people. So, and these beliefs are held almost self-righteously and almost religiously. There's also dietary things that go along with being a street kid. Lots of street kids are vegetarians because of the meat industry. They are often environmentalists, and a lot of them are vegans. So, there are customs that go along with being of this culture that are unique. For instance, shaving an individual's head. Right? A lot of common people, I say common, I mean people who are of other cultures that are not street kid cultures. They go to the barber shop and they get a haircut. That is the process. Native Americans are kind of an exemption to that. But, as well as African Americans have kind of a different way of going about hair care. But, so, for a punk or a street kid, when we shave each other's heads, it means something. Sometimes you just need to get it done. But most of the time, it is an incredibly sentimental affair. Your friend needs a mohawk. You go to a specific person who is good at cutting hair, giving the mohawk, and it is almost ritualistic. And a lot of times, it is very sexualized. Sounds absolutely crazy, right? Maybe to some other people, but some of you who are watching this video go, oh yeah, I especially like to have my head licked afterwards. It's a thing. But what is most important, what I think is most awesome about street kids, is that we are not victims. In the face of all adversity, in the face of having no place to sleep, in socks that don't dry out because it's here in California and it's the rainy season and your socks are just not going to be dry and you got boot rot. In the face of hunger, did you know dumpster diving is a crime? But 2 crimes. Trespassing and stealing. You can steal people's trash. So, in the face of all of that, and no one wanting you around, there is still something so beautiful and resilient and amazing. It is really a testament to what humanity can be. We organize for things like community and guerrilla gardenings. We participate in activism. We make art. We survive. We self-educate. We design our own fashion, which is meaningful and part of our art. So I'm hoping that through this YouTube channel that some of you guys can relate. And if you don't know about street kids, that maybe you'll be interested in learning some more. And I'm kind of interested in having you email me your ideas about... I just came up with some ideas off the top of my head, honestly. You can email me or comment to me about anything. But I'm interested in maybe your daily struggle. Like, what happened to you today? You know? Were you walking down the street and you spanked some guy and he told you to get a job and it made you real mad and this is what you said back? Tell me your totally funny and absurd stories, which is part of our kind of sense of humor. Engaging in the absurd. Tell me your tragic stories, you know, like your friend who died in a parking lot and nothing really happened. He was just cremated and that was the end. Like he never even existed or wasn't even important. Give me your commentary, positive and negative, right? Tell me your stories about drugs. Why did you choose to use them? Why do you still continue to use them? Why do you not use them? Are you straight edge? Are you not? How do you feel about straight edgers? Tell me about your friends. You know, what are they interested in? You know, who has really impacted your life and mentored you or been there for you and had your back? And they're, you know, your surrogate family that you have created because you didn't have one. Tell me something about music. This is really not about bands, but there is no way that you could possibly talk about punk rock culture and street kid culture without talking about music, right? There's just no way. Because music is kind of the heartthrob of it all. When you're in the pit and, you know, that's another cultural expression of love or unity, and someone's slamming into you and they put their arm around you and you can smell your friend next to you, and it's really an amazing feeling. So tell me about that. Tell me about your activism and your self-expression and your art, or whatever. And maybe I will post it to this or make a comment back. And following this video will be ways in which you can connect to me through email, my author's page on Facebook, my Twitter account, and hopefully a blog to come soon. And thanks for listening. See you next time.